started, right? So it's been about a year since I've done a VOD review, but we've opened up submissions once more. I thought it would be a nice way not only to provide some content, but also to, review some of our up-and-coming casters, not only in Overwatch, but in many different games. Today, we'll start off with one that I'm familiar with Overwatch. And then we will work our way through a couple of different titles as time goes on. So, for those in chat, obviously for those that are watching on YouTube, this may not be relevant. For those in chat, feel free to give me some feedback on levels. If you need to hear a bit more audio, then we can do that. So the person that I'm reviewing today is a bloke by the name of Paul Morrison, or Paulsible, as some of you might know him. He's actually not present in chat currently because he's casting, so he's on the grind, which I love to see. This bloke's been casting for about a year now. He's a play-by-play caster, and he's been in the sort of the Elo Hell circuit, starting off with Open Division and now casting Contenders. And yes, we have some Korean Contenders. So, yeah, and we're going to look a little bit of that. I'm at the timestamp of where he wanted me to start. This is the first map of the series between Element Mystic and Gen G. And Paul is a play-by-play caster. So as we go on, we'll have to guess which one it is, obviously based on what's being said. It should be easy enough. Initially, I will review the everything, I guess, until we sort of, zero in on which one Paul is and actually can start picking some things apart. Don't want to go for too much longer than an hour, so we'll see how we go. A couple things he wanted me to look at as a play-by-play caster were timing for how he ties in his color commentator, or when he includes him. When to give questions, or when to ask questions to a commentator, or when to make the point himself as a play-by-play guy. So looking for opportunities where he can set up his co-commentator for success, and also keep a good flow of conversation. And finally, he wants some pointers on when to focus on the specifics of a fight versus the general picture, to be able to sort of throw earlier and give his co-commentator some airtime. So knowing, something that play-by-play casters in Overwatch have to work on definitely is knowing when to just to sit back and let your offsider come in and do the work. So we're gonna be going back over a couple of things during the course of this video. There'll be some rewinding involved, so bear with me. But we'll start off here, and I'll just stop and discuss things as they come up.
It will be well for our first round, and Gen G versus Element Mystic.
Oh yeah, well, you were talking about how Ilios is not like any other map, and if well is not the...
I obviously don't know why that is, and well is a little bit unique, but the other two stages definitely have some similarities. I guess that's fair.
personification of that fact, I don't know.
Okay. First of all, the map is not a person. So a map cannot personify a fact. It can exemplify a fact, I guess. I would not use that word at all. It's just wrong.
And if well is not the personification of that fact, I don't know what would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. Yeah. Anyway, I get what you're kind of trying to say. There's definitely a better way to say it. This might not be plausible, by the way, but I'm doing it in general for now. Yeah, you can just say it's quite unique. I'd probably try and talk specifically about why it's unique if we have time here.
I mean, that center map hazard is certainly hazardous.
Okay. Try and be more specific. Whoever's talking about this. Yeah, I can crank up the. Sorry, guys. It's a little bit quiet. The center map hazard is hazardous. Mm-hmm. Let's just
Talent in O2
let's capture this intro in its entirety.
has done a fantastic job of that. Paul, we are into Ilios. It will be well for our first round, and Gen G versus Element Mystic.
Oh yeah,
so this is Paul here.
You were talking about how Ilios is not like any other map, and if well is not the personification of that fact, I don't know what
All right, yeah, Paul, that's you. You're on the hook for that one, mate. Doesn't make any sense.
would be.
I mean, that center map.
So your offside
hazard
here just
is
says
certainly hazardous.
Just yeah. I mean, please. You can do better than that.
Did you just say, well, it's certainly hazardous? I don't. Okay, well.
All right, Gen G, we're rolling out.
Spare me. Spare me of this, please. That exchange did not do a whole lot to explain or contextualize exactly why the map is hazardous, but Okay.
Anymore. All I do is listen to the beautiful sounds of the game. We're rolling out here. Nothing surprising from either side. Gen G rolling out.
Okay. This is... yeah, okay.
On the McCree comp. We've seen them use this on well once before.
Matt, I already have that one esports cast of the year award, mate. I'm about to get my second. Of course they would.
In their match against Meta Athena.
And that's why you see Stalker in play here, of course, on the McCree, right? Element Mystic, though. Yeah, you know what? You know what they've got.
That was a pretty...
So these trades aren't that important, obviously. So you can discuss whatever you like, providing that it is relevant. This might take longer than I thought. Okay.
Certainly hazardous.
You know,
I don't... Okay, well...
All right, Gen G.
So that, yeah, okay. So first of all, you kind of lost me a little bit on that, but this is also my personality. Some people might love like really bad puns, but when yeah, it was okay. Yeah, not great.
We're rolling out
anymore. All I do is listen to the beautiful sounds of the game. We're rolling out here. Nothing surprising from...
Now I have to assume this is week 3, day 2. How recently was this VOD? Okay, I'll have to check. So you said there's nothing surprising going on, which is
either side. Gen G rolling out on the McCree.
They have different compositions for sure. I see like this diva inclusion, so I'm going to assume it's a little bit while back. I won't try and judge it too much on meta.
Comp. We've seen them use this on well once before in their match against Meta Athena.
Okay, so how did it go when they used it once before? I guess, or at least is this something that Stalker is specifically doing? Is this bad or good? That's a great opportunity to ask you, Colorcaster, if you have time. Anyway, so you point out the Genji pick, the McCree pick.
And that's why you see Stalker in play here, of course, on the McCree, right? Element Mystic, though. Yeah, you know what? You know what they've got.
That was a pretty close pull there.
Okay. Yeah, you know what they've got. All right. So anyway, I think a Colorcaster here is referring to a halt.
Hanbin almost found himself going into the pit, managed to get out of there, but Gen G actually have complete control of the point right now, and Hanbin kind of looking a little worse for wear. Gets caught out, pulled into the pit. You can't avoid it twice. That's a good start here for...
I mean, yeah, he can't... I guess that makes sense, kind of avoid it twice. That's not... Yeah, okay, that's not all that relevant, but I guess that's fine.
Gen G against the Pacific Showdown champs.
Okay, I like that.
Stalker not quite finding the shots he needs. Another one into the pit. Goodbye, Sparkle. Over.
Okay, so one thing to try. This is just a little bit of a subjective thing, but try to avoid overindulgence when you're casting. So something might be really tickling you pink, and people love like a reaction. But remember, if your giggles are sort of cutting into your play-by-play or sort of limiting your ability to convey sufficient information, then it might be worth just trying to err a little bit more on the side of being a fucking a wet blanket, you know what I mean, or focusing a little bit more on the play-by-play side of things. I think it's fine. I think like the halt was obviously pretty important. I mean, it was a D-suited diva though. Well, the diva I guess got pulled off as well. So okay, we have source quality here. That's fine.
We're on deadly with those halts today.
You can see Stalker a little bit frustrated with himself. Doesn't hit as many shots as he nearly would have liked. They're gonna hold up very aggressively here. Gen G again. That first fight, it's so.
I mean, yeah, it's tough to say that as a Colorcaster because you can't see him. So, I guess you are referring to maybe positioning or, who knows how many shots he was trying to hit. He's trying to play against like a comp that has Winston barrier, Diva defense matrix, and Brig just waiting to slap him in the face. So he's probably just happy enough. You can see that he's done sufficient damage to put himself in a position where like there's going to be an ult on the way. So, it's not terrible. He's obviously not hit headshots, but obviously McCree's role a lot of the time and against this kind of composition is to stay alive. So, okay.
Hard to dislodge an Orisa when she started to get going, and Oberon, had that double halt, so 2 large targets getting into the well, did get the environmental kills, has very close to that supercharger. And
there's something I notice here is a lot of casters as they come up, they tend to rattle off things like got 2 large halts, didn't do this, did this. You sort of mention the player's name right at the beginning of the sentence, and then what you do is that you just say, you sort of rattle off some events in disjointed phrases. Let me try and give you an example of this based on what just sort of happened. So
double halt. So two large targets getting into the well, did get the environmental kills, has very close to that supercharger. And this next fight for Element Mystic is going to be really interesting because Doha.
So yeah, obviously, I think that's fine. There's an easier way. Like there's obviously those three things that you pointed out about Overrun right now. If there's a way that you can turn that maybe into, I'm nitpicking a little bit here, but like a more of a cohesive sentence than just sort of trying to rattle some things off, it'll be a little bit better. It'll be easier to tie a storyline to it later on.
Not close to that EMP yet.
No, but Stalker does have the Deadeye online. Could be pretty easy to find this as long as he doesn't get bullied here by Takoyaki. Is getting juggled around right now and taken down before he could pop the Deadeye at all. Overrun also going down.
It's more likely that he probably doesn't try and Deadeye there because he's just being straight dove.
Down over on the side, so now the rally is the only thing really keeping Genji in this fight.
It's good. I like that you point out that the rally.
It's a low damage comp for Element Mystic though, so it's hard to break through that, and it's even harder to break through a Transcendence. Genji, they're just gonna out-sustain, they're gonna weather the storm and keep control of the point.
Yeah, I guess that fight obviously involves McCree going down first, but you have a team that comes in with 2 support ultimates available and gets good value out of them there. The Transcendence. Do I have a screaming schedule? I'd say Monday to Friday from 3 p.m. Is where I'm sort of at right now, but I haven't got one laid in place, no. Let's go over that fight once more.
This next fight for Element Mystic is going to be really interesting because Doha not close to that EMP yet.
No, but Stalker does have the Deadeye online.
Okay, Stalker has the Deadeye. I mean, the fight's already started. I guess that's fine.
Could be pretty easy to find this as long as he doesn't get bullied here by...
It's not easy to find that. Not against the dive comp with the Diva.
Takoyaki is getting juggled around right now and taken down before he could pop the Deadeye at all. Oberon also going down over on the side, so now the rally is the only thing really...
So Oberon going down on the side is a little bit... if you're going to tie it to a location on the map, try and be a little bit more specific because we are in first-person view and it's a little bit hard to say... our frame of reference gets a little bit skewed. Are you talking about the side as... like the side room here? Or are you talking about the side room on this side of the... I literally just pointed my screen, what a boomer. Or are you talking about here? Yeah.
Keeping Genji in this fight. It's a low damage comp for Element Mystic though, so it's hard to break through that, and it's even harder to break through a chance.
Yeah, I guess it's a low damage comp from Element Mystic. It's hard to break through what? I guess the sustain, I guess, is probably the best way of putting it because their composition definitely hinges heavily on Doha getting an EMP, and this is that sort of Winston Goats that we used to see.
Transcendence, Genji, they're just gonna out-sustain, they're gonna weather the storm and keep control of the point.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. The way you type that fine is totally fine. They weather the storm, they out-sustain, they keep control of the point. All fine.
That's a really interesting look there from Genji. They commit the Transcendence. They know they can win the fight, but now, heading into the next one, Bliss is going to have to be the master here of avoiding...
Okay, so just a side note for you, Colorcaster. He says it's an interesting fight, and then he doesn't say why. He just sort of says what happens. Again, if you're going to express an opinion over something that happens, you must justify it, or at least give the viewers a reason why you find something interesting, because that is a big opportunity to add value as an analyst.
Doha's EMP. Oberon did make the switch off of the Orisa. Again, a slow-moving target. Does not get back to the point really quickly, so you do have the Winston coming to play now from Genji. So we are seeing that McCree composition looking to kind of play it out here. Stalker.
Yeah, okay. You have to explain what you mean about this composition playing out. Like, what is their win condition in this fight? It's really important to highlight that.
This is gonna... how they set up against the EMP is going to be what I'm looking at here, and it looks like...
Good. That was good.
Yeah, Bliss playing so very passively against Doha's EMP.
But he doesn't have the sound barrier online yet, and the EMP is going out. Oh, a couple players already deleted. Bliss didn't even have a chance to use the EMP. He was...
He didn't, okay.
Fighting for... Genji's used to get...
Okay, yeah, so that's a mistake. Bliss hides purposely, so he doesn't get EMP'd. He didn't... You said Bliss didn't even have the chance to use the EMP? Something similar like that? Just, you have to tighten up things like that.
Oh, a couple players already deleted. Bliss didn't even have a chance to use the EMP.
Yeah, so that's incorrect.
Was hiding for. Genji's used to gonna get wiped off the map. They want to stall this out as long as they can. They're nearly at that last fight territory, so if they can just mosey their array around this point, try and keep... Okay, so you make a fair point here. You say like they're in that last fight territory, and
So stalling out here is obviously favorable. You take too long to do that, and none of this stuff is really being discussed. This is, you can make that point, and then you can tie in your color caster. But you move into an idiom about moseying around the point, stalling it out, where obviously you can make that point and move on and open up some room for your offsider.
Wiped off the map. They want to stall this out as long as they can. They're nearly at that last fight territory.
So that's good. That's good. So you could almost cut it off there.
If they can just mosey their array around this point.
I mean, you made a vocal slip there as well. So, you sound like you're a little bit lost there. Either you're a little bit unsure about where to tack back in. But what you've done now is that, instead of the fight's over, instead of time that, your color caster could be working with to really break the fight down, not that there's much to really break down, you sort of, you drag this out a bit, not too long.
Point. Try and keep Element Mystic on their toes. They can come back.
So when you throw on a statement like keeping Element Mystic on their toes, which is a little bit of it's a bit of a time filler, I think, because it doesn't actually mean anything in this case, I guess. The stall point was fine.
Can win one more fight and have a good win condition on this first round.
The biggest problem here is that...
So what is the win condition? Winning the fight obviously doesn't count as a win condition. They don't really have many ultimates for the next fight. Switching to the Zarya, they're going to take some time to get Grav.
Element Mystic did not actually commit that much to that fight. Stalker now switching to the Zarya here.
That's a good point.
The McCree, they find that not nearly as valuable. Creative also with the switch to the Ana, so wholesale swaps coming in from Gen G. Again, you did mention this is last...
Missed the Zarya, which is probably more important. I mean, the Ana definitely bears explaining. You can sort of explain why we see the switch.
Last fight, but Element Mystic...
It's because he's getting fucking dove, and the Sombra's going to ruin him, and the Winston's going to ruin him. The Twitter, let me just give you that. Sorry, I'm trying to do this as one whole piece of content, so I'm not. It's at Paulsible Media is the name of the caster. So, to answer that shortly, FK Frost, I can answer questions at the end, but a lot of the time there is not outside professional help. No, we do it ourselves.
Mystic do have control of this fight. Again, they have the self-destruct, the rally, and the sound barrier, so they will have a lot of sustain through this fight.
Good point.
And Gen G are going to have to try and push their way forward.
Also good. He establishes the win condition for Gen G, but it's more likely that they're not really going to try and... I mean, if they can win in this fight, then good on them, but they're probably thinking about the next fight.
Into this.
This should just be a dry push, really, for Gen G, especially now that they have the Ana. Unless a huge anti-nade comes out while Gen G's pushing forward with this...
So there's no play-by-play commentary yet. You are correct, I think, in saying that it should be a dry fight. But if your color caster's already established a win condition, you can just use that narrative and then you can mention after that, oh well, because it's not really a dry fight, isn't it? Like we legitimately have a Lucio here who's trying to sound barrier, so they're definitely looking for some barrier, or at least trying to trade this one ult for like a rally. Maybe a sound barrier gets used here. You try and trade up a little bit with the sound barrier. Maybe even commit a primal rage, because the real important ultimate that you're waiting for is obviously the graviton surge. But if you can win a fight before then you're absolutely laughing.
Sound barrier, there's not really a chance for Gen G to get in, although the sleep on a Doha does help. They don't have to worry about EMP for a moment, but you do have to worry about the angry monkey Takoyaki slapping him around, throwing him everywhere.
I think, look, so I think you miss the important kill early on the Zenyatta, where if Element Mystic wanted the option to Transcendence, that just would have been taken off the table. This is the reason why... was it? Yeah, it was Overon, right? This is the reason why Gen G probably switched off their Zenyatta in the first place, because he gets boomed by Winston. And in Primal, you can't Transcendence a Primal because you just get knocked away. I mean, you can try and counteract the Winston, but if you're close to an edge or close to a well, like, it's just really, really dangerous. Yeah, so I mean, you are, again, you're... Something that I have definitely been sort of pulled up for in the past is excessive use of idiom. The Winston sort of, flying around and stuff, especially when you spend the first half of this fight trying to piggyback a point in setting up a win condition. You are now using what little time you have remaining, and you are not really talking much around the fight. You're very much stuck to the idea of this Winston primal raging. In reality, the most important play from the Winston in that fight happened off camera before the primal really started to, or before we really started to see it anyway.
in, although the sleep on a Doha does help. They don't have to worry about EMP for a moment, but you do have to worry about the angry monkey, Takoyaki, slapping him around, throwing him everywhere. And Gen.G just gonna have to try that one again.
I mean, Gen.G uses the sound barrier to engage, right? But they don't find a ton of value again with that sound barrier. They get
What value are they looking for, I guess, is the question.
stoned out with the self-destruct and Element Mystic. You know, they did not have to use the biggest tool in their toolbox, which is the EMP. And
good.
now again, Gen.G
good.
have nothing to deal with it. The rally, but you know, that it shuts you down. And if Doha gets a pretty large-scale EMP, Gen.G could be sitting in.
Yeah, I guess you were trying to what shuts you down. That's a very poorly finished point from your color commentator there. What shuts you down? The EMP shuts you down? Because there wasn't one. A rally does not necessarily shut a team down. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure what that is in reference to.
Last fight territory on their own attack. So Element Mystic looking to set up here. Again, they have that support ultimate to sustain through the fight. And
So looking to set up here is fine, but you need to say what they're setting up for. I like that, like you're thinking already about the win condition, but I don't think you tease it out very much. You're setting up for a big EMP is all you need to add there.
Eyes on Doha yet again.
And Doha's just waiting over on the side. Might even just throw the translocate.
So it's tough. I think you cannot see. I'm not sure if Paul can actually see program. So here's one thing that people sometimes forget with these broadcasts is that if they're doing it from home, they're not observing it. So they are watching from their point of view. The observer is observing, and they don't necessarily see what the observer sees, and i.e. they don't see what you see in general. So you have to cut casters a little bit of slack in that scenario. I hated it. I hated it so much when I was casting AMMs, and I couldn't see what the observer was, so I had to become really general as a caster. What's up, Ahigo? Welcome. We're just doing a VOD review. Yeah, so I mean, so on the side becomes even worse then, because you almost have to cast like a radio caster, where when I radio cast COD 4 for a few years, I had to be very specific about people's locations on the map because people just straight up couldn't see it. So you need to, fortunately the observer is like, after a while you know that the observer is going to be on board with the Sombra, but you can't be psychic about it. This is the story. It is about Doha getting in and getting an EMP, because Gen.G, starting to build up to nano boost for Winston, a potential self-destruct. Stalker gets a lot of damage in this fight. Well, this Zarya change might be a little bit too late. We'll see.
In. He doesn't have it set up right.
Yeah, thanks. The link in chat, you can put your questions there and I can cover it after.
Now, so nothing's really stopping him from just yeeting himself into the lines whenever he feels.
Well, that's categorically incorrect. So the Brig is definitely stopping him from doing that, and also the fact that he may not get a good EMP. So let me just... Sorry, I feel like I let some of that pass me by.
Mystic looking to set up here. Again, they have that support ultimate to sustain through the fight. And all eyes on Doha yet again.
Good. I mean, you set up the player to watch.
And Doha's just waiting over on the side. Might even just throw the translocator in. He doesn't have it set up right now, so nothing's really stopping him from just yeeting himself into the lines.
So obviously that's wrong.
Whenever he feels like, but he's going to play a little bit more passively right now. He wants to catch as many members as he can.
That's good. I mean, you talk about what a player is trying to do. I really like that. Instead of just saying what they're doing, if you can get in their head a little bit and establish for a viewer what a player is trying to achieve, that's a big value add as a play-by-play caster.
This EMP, and they're playing split, but they group up as they try and push Element Mystic off of the point. There's nothing sustaining Gen.G, most specifically Oberon and Wakid. They're going to find the wrong end of that EMP.
Okay, so you say there's nothing sustaining Gen.G. So you have to be careful, because there's a lot of talk of sustain here when it comes to healing. And then you say, Oberon and Wakid aren't sustaining them, and well, obviously Oberon's not healer. So if you're saying that they are not being sustained by players alive, then that's fine, but it's a little bit of a poor way to phrase it. So let's go back to before the EMP, and just talk it through.
On the side, might even just throw the translocator in. He doesn't have it set up right now, so nothing's really stopping him from just yeeting himself into the lines whenever he feels like, but he's going to play a little bit more passively right now. He wants to catch as many members as he can with this EMP, and they're playing split, but they group up as they try and push Element Mystic off of the point. There's nothing sustaining Gen.G, most specifically Oberon and Wakid. They're going to...
I think it's fine. The problem is that Yeah, I guess they are trying to push Element Mystic off the point, but we miss an opportunity to sort of establish what maybe Gen G are trying to do or how they're playing around the EMP.
To find the wrong end of that EMP, and the rest of Gen G.
Yeah, okay. Try not to do this. This is a little bit of a nitpick, but worth bearing in mind. An EMP doesn't... Yeah, I get what you're trying to say. Obviously, an EMP is spherical, so that it has no ends. And there is no right end of an EMP to be on, I guess, if you're on the other team. What's up, the Blevins? How you going?
You're gonna go for
It's fine. It's just, it's not the best turn of phrase, I think. Honestly, I'll think about it.
a quick reset back to spawn.
Yeah, quick reset. This is going to be really tough for them. 93% and counting. Can't even contest. This is going to be a really close, and with how aggressively Element Mystic is playing, it's unlikely that they're going to get a real full-scale fight here, will Gen G.
Bliss does get onto the point. He also gets hacked. Not looking great here.
Good pacing to start this fight. There is a kill that's happened, but you are not going too crazy yet.
Here for Gen G. Bliss going down. No way to speed on in. It all comes down to Oberon popping the primal. He's looking to displace Element Mystic as much as he can right now, but he's...
It's good. I like that. Again, you talk about what he's trying to do. You're saying it's all comes down to his primal. It's probably fair. So I don't have a problem with this.
not getting anything done, and the rest of his team is falling around him. Self-destruct, mostly just a zoning tool, but it hardly even matters. Even with Rakid having the nano boost, he's not going to live very long at all. And Element Mystic are going to clean up and take this first round of Ilios.
Okay. I thought that was pretty good. That calling in the fire. Outside of a couple small things, I'm reasonably happy with that. Let's see how you carry the downtime into stage 2.
Well, that's just Element Mystic understanding their composition so well.
Yeah.
And honestly, an unsung hero, we haven't really mentioned him, but Sparkle, playing the diva, you know.
Definitely didn't mention Sparkle once, I don't think.
Oh.
Not something you'd consider in his hero pool.
Yeah, and he looked pretty good with it. I don't think, you know, it was not a bad showing by any stretch of the imagination. And now,
God tier DPS players having to play diva feels bad, man.
you know, Sparkle, consistent on every hero he's played. We've seen from him this far in this season.
But we are going to get a bit of a switch.
Yep, okay. If you're going to leave dead air, leave it. It's okay. If you're going to pass, just leave it. It's okay for a couple seconds of quiet.
Up here for Gen G going into this next map. Makes sense. No real reason to run on Orisa and McCree here. So it's just going to be the standard.
Do you say why? If you're going to talk about it, which you can just tack on a little explainer
into this next map.
Because obviously we have a lot of Orisa on this map nowadays, but things have changed.
Makes sense. No real reason to run on Orisa and McCree here. So it's just going to be the standard Sombra Goats, the 3-2-1, whatever you like to call it. You know what it is, folks. It's triple support with that Sombra rocking out. So now it's all
probably a little bit too long spent on providing multiple ways of explaining it. Try and tighten that up. I mean, this is in the past now, but yeah.
Almost a mirror matchup. The key difference, Element Mystic coming out, it looks like they're expecting a DPS.
Just try and say Element Mystic comes out, not coming out. A lot of casters do that. Like their use of present tense is like a little bit... yeah, I often see like future tense use instead of present tense use sometimes. Let's see if I can provide an example of that. But you know, people always say like, you know, instead of comes out, they say sort of coming out or something like that. It's something I know a lot of casters have picked up, and I'm not really sure where it comes from. I'll point out some more examples of that as we go.
Composition.
Yeah, Sparkle stays on the deep.
Oh, yes. Okay, so just, I don't know if you were trying to say consistently there. Try and have, you know, an idea of what you want to say before we say it.
And we'll see how they choose to...
Okay, you have derailed a point. You're about to set up something that we're looking forward to. We'll see if something happens or whatever, but you abandon it immediately. Either stick to it or don't do it.
Stays on the diva. And we'll see how they choose to react to this. Doha, again, scouting out, looking for that early engage. And, Element Mystic back to spawn.
Okay, yeah, I mean... They choose to react to this, like try and be a bit more specific, you know, based on what they've seen.
Sparkle, yeah, they're switching as well. Yeah, they're...
And again, this is not all Paulsible, by the way. This is both of these This is both of the casters. So we are trying to focus more on Paulsible, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to differentiate two American voices for me. So I'm doing what I can.
Okay, this is a little bit strange. We're seeing the Sombra. Actually, it goes back to the Lucio. So thought about the.
Okay, settle down. If you're gonna see switches, try and wait till you see them walk out of spawn. That was a messy call.
And they clicked on the wrong.
And now you guys are laughing over each other. All right. Thank you very much to Blevins for the tier 1 sub and welcome.
Character was actually looking for the Lucio the whole time.
Appreciate it, brother.
Ooh, Hanbin's taking a lot of damage though. Element Mystic can't really get into this, so Genji are just gonna.
Why not? Because Hanbin ate a fire strike? I mean, because they're too late is probably what you're trying to refer to.
Get this first cap for free because the spam damage just kept them out. Now Genji, they just get to sit and wait.
We'll see how, they choose
long.
a very...
And again, once we'll see how gets abandoned. Avoid it if you can. Try not to... Avoid speculation, in the imminent seconds before a fight.
aggressive engagement here,
No, that's just a straight push down the middle right there.
You guys are a little bit confused about who's talking here. You don't have to play-by-play cast every fight. And in GOATs, So one thing I did with Matt in GOATs was to lay off the first part of the fight, because there's a lot of trading going on here, okay? We'll see what happens to Oberon if he gets another bubble or if a repair pack comes in. But yeah, just you can let it go a bit. If your color caster is talking, there's no need to cut in, especially for this kind of stuff.
They're not going to bother with the point until Genji's removed from the map, and that's not going to take very long. Oberon,
isn't it?
Going down, just a...
It's going to take a long time. I mean, you establish that Genji are not going to capture the point. I know that Element Mystic are not going to capture the point until Genji are all dead. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Because they're out of position, Genji. Their positioning was really quite interesting. They didn't want to play on the point, I guess. So... yeah, they're capping as we speak after just getting the one kill, which is definitely a more likely scenario when Lucio can speed or disengage.
Leaded from the face of the earth. Takoyaki is taking a lot of pressure, but...
So you said face of the earth and face of the map, I believe, and sort of a very short span from each other, so try and vary that a little.
Mystic have capped the point in all of this, and now they just get to sit here and wait like Genji was.
Yeah,
fair point.
I mean, both teams trading back and forth. It was a very decisive fight from Element Mystic, and that's what you're kind of looking for. But here, that EMP, as I was about to mention, it goes straight down.
Yeah.
Takoyaki found.
Okay, let him go. Let him go. Yeah, if he wants to. So now, if I was the color caster, I'd be like, I'd stop at the EMP, but he hasn't chosen to do that. Just let him go. You just gotta wait till it comes back. And if you don't like that, then talk to him sort of off air, but just let him have it.
There's no...
Because look how quick the fight is over now. Like, what's there to play-by-play anymore? Like, so you're not going to play-by-play 100% of people fighting, and that's fine. You know, try and use this time as more of a conversation.
Real way for Element Mystic to deal with that. Thankfully, they do hang on to their ultimates. They're going to have a good way back into the next fight, but it's a pretty quick flip back here.
Okay, so there's obviously a slip there vocally. You are already establishing a win condition for Element Mystic in the next fight, to a degree, talking about them saving ultimates, which is fine. Maybe a good opportunity to tie your color caster in to elaborate on this.
It's going to be 24 versus 20 and counting.
A hot potato.
I like that. I like that you referenced the score there. I think casters don't do this enough. And it is a good way, even if I'm watching the VOD of something, I'm not necessarily... looking up here. Right now, I'm probably looking like here and here, and probably at what's on the screen. So, as clear as a score might see, it is a good way to, I mean, it's the same as in football. People will refer to the score even if it is on the screen. Commentators often sort of do it. Not as much as radio casting, but just as a side note, I'm glad that you did this, because it's easy to lose track of this as a viewer. You got so many other things to watch.
Potato lighthouse here as they both teams shout "you take it" back to each other. But now Element Mystic are now in the...
Fair enough. Let me just try and... I'm not really sure what kind of reference that was. Let me have a look.
Because the spam damage just kept them out. Now Genji, they just get to sit and wait.
We'll see how, they choose a very aggressive engagement here.
Yeah, no, that's just a straight push down the middle. Right?
Cut him twice, yeah. Nope. If you're going to do it, try and do it under him. but it's very hard if you're not in person.
Right there. Element Mystic, they're not going to bother with the point until Genji's removed from the map, and that's not going to take very long.
Yeah, two things, unfortunately, in a row that are incorrect. Two things, back to back, that were wrong.
Oberon going down, just deleted from the face of the earth. Takoyaki is taking a lot of pressure, but Element Mystic have capped the point in all of this, and now they just get to sit here and wait like Genji was.
Yeah, I mean, both teams trading
Like Genji did.
back and forth. It was a very decisive fight from Element Mystic, and that's what you're kind of looking for. But here, that
Or were.
EMP, as I was about to mention, it goes straight down. Takoyaki found out.
4. There's no real way for Element Mystic to deal with that. Thankfully, they do hang on to their ultimates. They're going to have a good way back into the next fight.
I mean, there are ways to deal with that, but in that fight there aren't. Maybe talk about why they couldn't do anything about it. You know, try and use a positioning anecdote instead of just saying they couldn't do a thing about it. There's much more to uncover there.
But it's a pretty quick flip back here. It's going to be 24 versus 20 and counting.
A hot potato lighthouse here. As they both teams shout, "You take it," back to each other. But now Element Mystic are now in the position that Genji was, with Doha having the EMP online. And it's up to Creative now. Can they avoid the EMP? Can they sustain through the loss of abilities? And again, Doha looking for that engagement, playing low on the ground. It's going to fall in. And here they're trying to play off Oberon again.
Oh, Earthshatter actually coming down. Catching MCD in the back.
From who? Who is shattering?
But not able.
Instead of, so you say Earthshatter coming down, catching someone in the back. It's better to say, in my opinion, you should be saying Earthshatter comes down, catches them, catches them in the back, instead of Earthshatter, yeah, try and talk a little bit more in the present, I guess, if that makes sense. Because a lot of casters do that, like comes down, runs away, jumps up. Does that make sense? Hold on. I need a better way of explaining it.
The spam damage just kept them out. Now Genji, they just get to sit and wait.
We'll see how, they choose a very aggressive engagement here. Yeah,
no, that's just a straight push down the middle right there. Element Mystic, they're not going to bother with the point until Genji's removed from the map, and that's not going to take very long. Oberon going down, just deleted from the face of the earth. Takoyaki is taking a lot of pressure, but Element Mystic have capped the...
Also, in between face of the earth and Takoyaki taking a lot of pressure, there's a beat for a breath there. You should take it because they are two different things that you are talking about, but you phrase them all as if it's using almost like a run-on sentence. You phrase those two things together, where really that's a great chance to break up the tempo a little bit and shift the focus. So try and get a beat for breath in there if you can.
Point in all of this, and now they just get to sit here and wait like Genji was.
Yeah, I mean, both teams trading back and forth. It was a very decisive fight from Element Mystic, and that's what you're kind of looking for. But here, that EMP, as I was about to mention, it goes straight down. Takoyaki found out.
4. There's no real way for Element Mystic to deal with
because you mentioned it catches 4, so that's all right.
that. Thankfully, they do hang on to their ultimates. They're going to have a good way back into the next fight. But it's a pretty quick flip back here. It's going to be 24 versus 20 and counting.
A hot potato lighthouse here, as they both teams shout, "You take it," back to each other. But now Element Mystic are now in the position that Genji was, with Doha having the EMP online. And it's up to Creative now. Can they avoid the EMP? Can they sustain through the loss of ability?
I see. So it's up to Creative now. Presumably, you are using they, them pronouns, which is fine. It just, when I first heard it, it sounded like you were referring to a collective, like the team itself. But I do hear you mention creative there. So.
And again, Doha looking for that engagement, playing low on the ground. It's going to fall in.
Which is a safe bet. There's nothing wrong with using those pronouns for players. I can't imagine that anyone would have an issue. It's just when I first heard it, it sounded like you're referring to the team and not the individual.
And here they're trying to play off Oberon again.
Oh, Earthshatter actually coming down. Catching MCD in the backline, but not able to make anything of that kill.
So, okay, that's fine. Talks about the Earthshatter. Obviously, the EMP is maybe a little bit more important here, but Oberon tries to...
Takoyaki is removed, however, so even with the EMP coming out from Doha, it's not necessarily the advantage Element Mystic were looking for, but with the grab, that'll be all the advantage they need. It's just clean up now. A lot of percent gain for
So I'm fine with this.
Genji, but
you sort of mentioned that the EMP wasn't sufficient. you say that with the graviton, they do find that advantage. I think this is okay.
We continue this game a hot potato.
That was really
the hot
unfortunate
potato
for
joke is
Gen
fine.
G, as despite the Transcendence, Oberon was taken down, and so you know that's when you lose your front line, you really lose your protection. You lose that cleave damage too to help sustain through the fight, right?
Okay, just be a little careful. Cleave damage is not always a term that people will instinctively understand as being sort of AoE or that. Obviously, gamers or those that have played MMOs and stuff will understand it, but not everyone will.
Help take the fight away, and Oberon ends up not able to help them, and Element Mystic take it back again. Though we're continuing that Sombra war.
Wow, aggressive
Cut over him again,
grab right there. Catches
and then you weren't even ready to follow it up.
Doha and Sparkle up on the high ground. Nice heads-up play from Wooyall to just completely decimate them, punish that over-aggression.
All right, you take it. Says.
Was it over aggression? I would say that that Gen G played quite far forward. Would you not agree? Let's see here.
Take it back again, though. We're continuing that Sombra war.
Wow, aggressive grab right there. Catches Doha and Sparkle up on the high ground.
So you start by establishing that the grab was aggressive from Gen
Nice
G.
heads-up play from Wooyall to just completely decimate them, punish that over-aggression.
All right, you take it. Says.
Yeah. Not huge on it. Okay, the hot potato joke is fine. It's maybe done now. It's maybe done.
Ultimate Mystic.
Maybe not according to Paul's sense of humor, but it's probably done.
So we it's a little bit back and forth, but they didn't even have to.
So it's a little bit back and forth. Yeah, that is. I would not file that under good casting. You need to be a lot clearer than that. I guess it's a response to the laugh that maybe cut him off or whatever. But yeah, don't do it.
The EMP, that was such a clean graviton surge, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the first question I've heard asked between the two of you, and it was right.
You can't use the sound barrier because it has to keep it. The EMP would just come out straight after. So Gen G are in a really good position here now.
Thanks, Mail.
In that last fight situation.
Doha got
Doha.
slept over there on the side, I believe. That could have been bad, but some spam wakes him up, saves his life there. So now it's still going to be a pretty even fight heading on into this.
There is an EMP available, so is it true that it's an even fight? I'm not sure.
But Element Mystic, like you said, they're walking into an EMP,
Yep.
and they're not walking with much time right now.
He got slept again, a second time.
Translocate into the EMP, only catches 3, but it's more than enough to kill Takoyaki because he was behind the wall. I don't think.
Oh, there we go. A because there. I'm glad that you explained why it was enough to get just 3 people with an EMP.
He got the sound barrier onto him.
Oberon.
It just wasn't enough. Oberon says, you know what though, guys? If we don't.
You cut your point off there so abruptly to try and react to something that your other caster had said.
Oberon says, you know what?
Let me just go back a little bit. Yeah, I'm not in love with that.
But it's more than enough to kill Takoyaki because he was behind the wall. I don't think he got the sound barrier on.
Bear in mind, Element Mystics still are able to get a sound barrier and trade Reinhardt's here.
Oberon.
It just wasn't enough. Oberon says, you know what though, guys? If we don't have a main or if you don't have a main take, it's only fair we don't either.
See, I feel like, yeah, you said that the 3-player EMP was enough, but then all these teams do is trade at the cost of a sound barrier from Element Mystic, and now they have an EMP. So it's almost as if you're convinced the fight is over before you see that kill traded back. And if you see sound barriers here, you have to give these guys a chance to stay in it. Especially with how aggressive Oberon played there and got punished for. Yeah. Let's do it one more time.
But it's more than enough to kill Takoyaki because he was behind the wall. I don't think he got the sound barrier onto him.
Oberon.
It just wasn't enough. Oberon says.
Okay, yeah. So I don't think he got the sound. I don't think he got the sound barrier onto him, which is great. That's pretty good. And then mumble. It wasn't enough. So that's yeah, not a great example of staying in the driver's seat while you're by playing a fight. I don't want to hear any more mumbling or trailing off. If you don't have a fully formed thought to share, then do not let it out of your mouth.
You know what though, guys? If we don't have a main or if you don't have a main take, it's only fair we don't either.
That doesn't, yeah, I guess I see what you're trying to say. But it's just a really flowery way of saying that these two teams traded main tanks and there's a fight going on, and you're making an anecdote here which just it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really make sense. If you don't have a main tank, it's only fair that we don't have one either, which is fine. But you can package this up like really shortly and not let it be the dominant narrative for the fight, because right now that's what it is. So, you know, what the dominant narrative should be, you know, Takoyaki out of range of the sound barrier, gets blown up. Oberon trades aggressively. Gen.G now looks like they try and re-engage back to the point, but their use of EMP didn't garner them an ultimate. They don't have much else to work with except support ultimates, so what are they going to try for? Oberon doesn't have a shadow. Takoyaki will come back into the fight with it later on, and Element Mystic have a grab. So realistically, there's no reason for EM to lose this fight. But you know, there's not enough of that overarching storyline. There's sort of pithy use of idiom and analogy here that don't belong in a fight that is extremely important. The difference between this going to, and you know, like you maybe didn't mention this before the fight. Maybe you did, but this doesn't really get enough highlighting in this fight. It's an important fight. Gen.G are, you know, obviously going to win the round, you know, with another capture here, and they're looking to try and do that now. This is where I want your eyes to be, is that Gen.G are pushing across to the point now, and they're going to try and get it done. It looks like they're going to try and commit to this fight, even though they're missing their Reinhardt and they don't have a lot of ultimates. Maybe they force some out of EM here. Like an aggressive late fight scenario is definitely the kind of thing that can force some of these ultimates out. These two are really, really important. Okay. Might seem like I'm being a little bit hard on these two, but it's really important to identify missed opportunities for really solid play-by-play and good back and forth.
Wins over off into nowhere, and Element Mystic get the point for free right now.
Yeah, that was a big.
And that is so huge that they get the point. You know, EM, but the fight is not necessarily over. It depends what Gen.G try and do. If they do commit, looks like they might be disengaging. So
Big mistake by Oberon. You do not charge that situation. It's unfortunate, but oh, this is real.
What situation do you not charge in? I guess you say you do not charge when X is much better than saying you do not charge in that situation. Otherwise, it just comes out as like a negative point that doesn't have much substance.
Really disastrous for you, y'all. They grab him down.
Okay for the moment, but it does force the sound barrier out with that Graviton Surge.
Okay, it does force the sound barrier out with that Graviton Surge. The Graviton Surge forces the sound barrier out. The Graviton Surge forces the sound barrier out. Just need to be clear on that. You're not. It forces. You said it forces the sound barrier out with the Graviton Surge. What does that mean?
Soha's got that EMP too. Not even going to really need it. Maybe will now that the Nano goes down onto Oberon. It's a lot of pushing power in the front lines, but
oh, the shield.
That was, yeah, that's really important. Gen.G are playing with an Ani here, so him stepping ahead of the enemy Reinhardt is going to ensure that they get him.
It hardly even seems like Element Mystic care about the Nano Reinhardt. Takoyaki just walks past him and says, "Don't worry, team. I'll just make sure he doesn't get any healing."
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, you mentioned that. That's good.
Oberon was slept, so they bring the shield up. Takoyaki blocks all line of sight with his shield, and they can kill Oberon through it. So it's a really smart play by Takoyaki. And Element Mystic now in the fight where they need to win, they have all the tools necessary. Here comes that EMP.
It's gonna be nasty.
Good throw.
It catches 4. Oh, there's no chance for Gen.G to sustain through this, even with the rally coming out. It's trivial for
What?
Element Mystic to clean this one up. EMP in desperation. Actually, MCD dead. Takoyaki bioed. The rest of Element Mystic wiped off the map. It was a comeback that I didn't expect. But Stalker with the EMP proves me wrong. Gen.G gonna send us to a third and final round of control.
Oh.
That fight, the way that fight was cast, is a long way away from where you want to be, I think. I think that was, if I had to grade that play-by-play of that fight, I would give it a D. We're gonna go back and talk about that a little bit there, but the most important issue I have there is you've read the fight pretty wrong, pretty egregiously incorrectly, and you spend far too much time having to backtrack and correct, or there's also in some sense where, like, yeah, so it's a 4-player EMP and you get very excited about that, but you linger on that point for far too long. You talk about it's a 4-player EMP, there's no way they're coming back from this. You need to avoid this kind of language, because in GOATs especially, now it's not less of an issue now, I guess, but in GOATs, like, that was never going to be the decider in and of itself, when there were support players who quite often would be able to get ultimates off after that. So I would say that, you know, where you want to be and you know, where that fight was are in 2 very different directions. So let's do it. Let's just stop at each segment here.
Mystic care about the nanoed Reinhardt. Takoyaki just walks past him and says, "Don't worry, team. I'll just make sure he doesn't get any healing."
I mean, Oberon was slept, so they bring the shield up. Takoyaki blocks all line of sight with his shield, and they can kill Oberon.
So this is going to be a good throw. This is a great chance to add some. This is a great chance to just speed up a little bit, add a little bit more gravity as a play-by-play caster to this situation. You don't do that, so we'll talk about what actually happened. No, they're not in chat, Pepino. They're actually out there casting right now, so good on them.
Through it, so it's a really smart play by Takoyaki. And Element Mystic now, in the fight where they need to win, they have all the tools necessary. Here comes that EMP.
It's gonna be nasty. It catches 4.
So more importantly, it catches the Reinhardt and they focus him. That's the first thing you need to mention. I think that it's very clear that Element Mystic is trying to go for an individual player. It catches 4. It's nasty, but there is a rally in play. There's a rally in play, as far as I can tell.
Oh, there's no chance for Gen Z to...
Categorically incorrect. They've lost 1 player. It's a Reinhardt. The Vancouver Titans won more fights than they lost when Reinhardt was their first casualty.
Sustain through this, even with the rally coming out.
For a time, anyway. The rally comes out.
Trivial for Element Mystic to clean this one up. EMP in desperation. Actually, MCD.
It's not in desperation. There's like, you have like such powerful ultimates online here.
And Takoyaki bioed. The rest of Element Mystic wiped off the map. It was
again wiped off the map. It's a reuse of that phrase multiple times in this one round.
A comeback that I didn't expect.
So you're yelling and you're clearly excited. You didn't expect this comeback, but I believe you didn't expect the comeback because you did not read the game correctly before the fight began.
But Stalker with the EMP proves me wrong. Gen G gonna send us to a 3rd and final round of Control.
Oh, and this has been a problem actually for Element Mystic in their EMP fights. They're so used to winning them that they go and chase after a kill and leave their backline exposed. Credit to Stalker for farming the last 20% of that EMP in that final fight.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They do leave their backline exposed. They also just get hit by a grab and an EMP when the enemy team also has rally online.
Right? But, I mean, that's not a fight you win if you're Gen G. It's at least not on paper. Very, very curious choice by Element Mystic to chase off.
So, side note for your color caster, I strongly disagree with that analysis. EMPs can be hard to bounce back from, but if you have support ultimates on players that weren't unaffected by it, then, you know, you definitely can. And especially if you have an EMP and a Graviton Surge coming in after, I think, yeah, like we saw a main tank get dove on, blown up. But there was, you know, that happens. These things happen quite commonly, and it's definitely on the Zarya late in the fight to do work, and obviously those ultimates. So, yeah, guys, honestly, not great that last fight.
In separated fashion and end up losing the fight. So again, a round which I thought was going to end with Element Mystic for the first time in the round winning back-to-back fights to close it out turns into a continuous. I mean, the round stayed true to itself.
A continuous what? Don't cut yourself off there. If you got something to say.
until the very end. So
it's just constant back and forth. No team gets to hold on to the point.
Right.
You have to earn it back.
Yeah. Well.
Okay. I don't think a lot of that. Yeah. I don't think a lot of that made a lot of sense. The constant back and forth, and you have to earn it. I mean, these are. I would use the word platitudes to describe some of those statements because they just didn't really hold a lot of substance. And you have precious few seconds between rounds. Try and use them as effectively as you can.
We are going to be on ruins.
Here.
Yeah.
Moving into ruins. Hopefully, we get a little bit more. We get some defense. Hopefully here. Same, fairly mirror compositions.
Okay. You need to sit up in your seat here. It's round 3. The general casting is getting a little bit sloppy. So hopefully you see some more defense is what you're trying to say, but it's a lot of elongated sounds and stutters and ums and ahs.
Moving into ruins. Hopefully, we get a little bit more. We get some defense. Hopefully here. Same, fairly mirror compositions.
Yeah, okay, so like 3 seconds of I don't even know what words they were. Sorry. They were said too quietly and I don't think they were fully formed.
MCD still rocking the Ana, unsurprised. Has been more so the hero that he's liked to play here.
Oh.
Okay, that's fine. There's probably a more brief way of saying that. You know, MCD on his preferred hero, Ana. Probably go from there. And you can always, there's maybe a chance if you want to say a Y, then you can, but you don't have to there.
That was close.
Not that close. There's a wide berth there. Oh, that sleep dart was close, but the hat comes out regardless. Oh, Takoyaki.
So try not to. There's a lot of like you're reacting with oh, and then sort of doing the commentary. Try and avoid that when you have they're just little things like a fire strike being dodged or a sleep or whatever. Try to leave them out. Like you can react before play-by-play, but only in like only in bigger moments here. When there's a couple of little things like, oh, that was interesting. Oh, that was close. What was close? You know, you're much better off getting rid of that and saying, you know, fire strike is sidestepped, narrowly missing the sleep dart or something like that to be a little bit more specific instead of just reacting to maybe what you're aware of. And then, you know, that was close. Oh, it wasn't really close. There was a wide berth given. I'm like, oh, okay, guys, like there's better times for this back and forth. And when a Reinhardt player is dead, the other one's hit by a Bionade, and this fight's about to break down and focus around the Zayas.
Separated, pushed out of line of sight. MCD couldn't heal him whatsoever. But yet again, Oberon, after Takoyaki goes down, Oberon trades out. So it's not an inherent advantage here for Gen G.
So I mean, yeah, I just say it's they trade out. You're right. Or gets picked up. It's more like when you say it trades out, like you are maybe missing an opportunity to be more specific if you see it. But yeah, obviously there's not an inherent advantage because it's a 5v5. Just say it's a 5v5. Both teams without their main tanks. Like there are much easier ways to sort of say, well, you know, yeah, they don't really have an advantage after losing that player. Which this is something that should be clear, I think. So you can lop that statement in half.
Stalker actually caught out onto the point as well. It's a lot of damage.
Caught out onto the point. Avoid filler words and try and be more specific.
And utility gone for Gen G. And even though they started with an advantage, it doesn't look like they're going to get this first cap.
I thought, well, I guess they did, right? They got Takoyaki first. Okay.
Something we don't talk about a lot is the actual hack target. And something that something that Doha has been doing consistently he's been hacking Stalker, and Stalker can't translocate out. So you see the Sombra on the front line with no escape, and that is not a very secure player at all. Stalker
It's good. It's a good point.
Goes down, and that costs Gen G that first fight.
Ooh, rally.
Good throw.
Coming out. That's going to be more than enough to take out Oberon.
Okay, so again, there's the leaning on the more than enough or not enough phrase. So there's a rally. It's more than enough to take out Oberon. It's probably the fact that he's getting his head beaten in by Takoyaki.
Man, Element Mystic just brute forced their way through. Who needs anything but a bit of armor to wipe Gen G off the map?
Okay, so there's like, and I'm pretty sure you're about to say wipe them off the map again. This is super big picture commentary in this fight, and it doesn't really deal with the specifics at all. And I think that they're there. I understand that you can't maybe always see what the observer sees. If you can, then it's a bit more egregious, and you really need to be more specific. This is all very overarching, big picture stuff. So please try and think a bit more, in this meta especially, please think a little bit more about individual cooldowns. Maybe Zarya bubbles here. I like the point that was made up about hacking the Sombra. There was actually a trade of Sombras in that last fight. You know, what about the Reinhardt's positioning is causing them to get picked off so early? Is this intentional? Is it not? You know, are Gen G getting punished for positioning themselves too far forward? Instead of comes in with a rally, should be more than enough to take down Gen G, they get wiped off the map. You know, you're not adding value to the viewing experience as a caster by doing this. I've said I've pointed this finger at casters before, but you're just feeling the airtime. So being more cognizant of exactly what it is that you're saying is incredibly important, because when I see casting like this, it gives me the impression that, you know, some casters don't think there's maybe that much to it when they stay very, very general like this. But there is. It's a very technically deep field of work, and there's a heck of a lot that can be done with very little. So the only reason it irks me is because it gives me, and I'm not saying that this is how you think, but it gives me the impression that perhaps you think this job is easier than it is.
Yeah, and that's gonna...
like, just pick something, pick detailed things, right? As time goes on, you probably want to fill a hierarchy in your head of, like, you know, 10 different things that happen in a team fight that are important, that are very important. And you're only going to get to 3 of them probably. So you need to pick the 3 most important ones. I think you are shying away from that challenge by sitting back, and you weren't given as much time because you got thrown in after the first kill happened. You can still work with it. It is GOATS, and that does maybe necessitate, in some cases, a more macro way of casting because the fights are longer. But remember, the fights are longer, but they're still governed by cooldown usage very heavily. Brigitte shield bashes, Zarya bubbles, you know, whether your Sombra can translocate out or if they get hacked. When is the biotic grenade used in these fights? Is it used offensively, defensively? Is there a sleep dart that's important? One team has a Zenyatta, one team has an Ana. Theoretically, Gen G should always win the longer fight because they will grind down with Discord Orb and punish an enemy tank. Whereas Element Mystic have Ana, who plays heavily around that biotic grenade, and if you hit a big one, you're going to go forward because the enemy doesn't have a lot of healing between Zen, Lucio, and I think that is a Zen, right? Yeah. Anyway, so like there's tons of stuff. Do you think talking about cooldowns is difficult in terms of explaining clearly in time without missing later actions, why people avoid it? Yeah, it's hard to do it right, but a Zarya bubble is pretty easy to refer to. A shield bash that either connects or doesn't is crucial. A whip shot that generates a very important inspire trigger for Brigitte, and that extra healing is also important. A lot of Brigs just try and make sure they hit the whip shot so they get the healing from it because it's guaranteed to proc that healing.
That's going to actually put Doha back in contest with Stalker. Winning a fight off of Rally is one of the most effective ways in Overwatch to gain an ultimate economy. It is, this is an ultimate that is considered, quote, throwaway, just because of how...
Yeah, I know you're seeing Hanbin doing something crazy. Just wait for the chance to talk about it.
How quickly it builds, but it's got a really, really high ability to close out fights.
I can hear you sort of talking about it quietly.
It's the only one used. Hanbin helps them build up now to that 5-pack of ultimates, only unique, trailing behind.
Yeah, Doha in the back line too, ready at any point with the EMP, but the first EMP comes the other direction.
Comes from the other direction, and even then it's not a great way of putting it.
Mystic not really phased by it, however. They're doing just fine. They just disengage, they back up.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, like, they're not phased about it. You don't have to add on, they're doing just fine. You're talking about disengaging, that's good. Maybe establish the win condition now by baiting them into an EMP, and they're going to get EMP shattered potentially here.
The EMP run its course.
They want them
and
to push the point.
now they're even getting to a fight on the point.
Backing up.
Not much left for Gen G to work with either.
That is really unfortunate.
They want them to commit here before Doha goes in.
Because the EMP is still online.
There's the EMP, and there may be a shatter to follow this up. It may not be necessary.
Oh, there it is!
And there's the shatter.
Catches all 6! Gen G not going to be able to sustain that. Creative punishes Doha for his beautiful ultimate ability, but it's not going to be a punish that nets Gen G anything more.
So you spend like a good deal of time talking about a kill that actually doesn't matter. Doha got killed by Zenyatta after EMPing and after they got completely ruined. So there's so many things that you could talk about that are relevant to the fight. That I don't think is one of them. And saying that a team is not going to be able to sustain through an EMP, while fair, you missed an opportunity to discuss that they were baiting. I mean, and you don't have to discuss this, but you pointed out, you can see that Element Mystic were backing up. You could see that they were trying to bait them into somewhere out in the open where it'd be easier to hit an EMP. But I mean, that wasn't mentioned. The shadow to follow it up, obviously that was important. They got caught in a grab. So Gen.G grabbed Element Mystic there. And that in many cases would be really bad. But not in this one, because the EMP came out after and they were able to get a shadow whilst the Ryan, mind you, was still in the Graviton Surge. That's not an open and sharp fight. Let's look at it one more time.
Not much left for Gen.G to work with either.
What? Bro. I mean, there's a decent amount for Gen.G to work with here. Now, like, yeah, will they win the fight? But they have Sound Barrier and EMP coming online. They have 2 support ultimates here and a fight-winning ultimate. There's plenty to work with. They just, they lack a player. They know, like, but Element Mystic realize they know that Gen.G is trying to push a fight here. So look at the setup. Play around here and get a potential big bash and just wait for Doha to come forward and hit this EMP. There's plenty to work with. Again, you can do a lot. You can add a lot more suspense to fights by not ruling them out too early. I think there've been a couple of fights here that you have called over that maybe either haven't been over yet. There was still a couple of things that had to happen, or they just weren't going to go the way that you said they were, and you sort of commit to a decision one way or another a little bit too early.
That is really unfortunate that Creative was forced to use the Transcendence because the EMP is still online.
Oh, there it is! Catches all 6! Gen.G not going to be able to sustain that. Creative punishes Doha for his beautiful...
Yeah. So you said there it is. EMP catches all 6. Gen.G not being able to sustain through that. Creative punishes Doha for his beautiful EMP. Except you say it even longer than that. So there's like a ton of stuff that is really obvious. Like that stuff is like... So, see this here? See this here? I don't want this to be lent on. This kill doesn't mean anything. Literally nothing. It's not getting him much closer to an ult. He dies late in the fight, so staggers potentially further. This is like you want to be looking at what is happening on this part of the screen. It's fine that there's a kill feed. I will use a kill feed simply. And I'll be honest with you here. Simply, first of all, an important kill happens off screen by ability or ultimate, I'll use it. Also, if there's a multi-kill that comes out and I need at a glance to see how many people died, I will use this. Maybe I'll also use it to check if there's a headshot, which there was here. Otherwise, forget it's there. Just forget it's there. As a play caster, you have to work with this, what you see. Or if you're on an overhead view, use that.
Full ultimate ability, but it's not going to be a punish that nets.
Like that's, yeah. I mean, they get grabbed. Like it, Gen.G, that represents a big commitment. I'm using a product called Epic Pen, the Blevins.
Gen.G anything more than a little bit of a pat on the back.
Yeah, what is this umming and ahhing, bro? Like you kind of ramp it up and then you sort of lose me here on bits and pieces.
Oh, there it is! Catches all 6!
Catches all 6.
Gen.G not going to be able to sustain.
Gen.G not going to be able to sustain through that.
That Creative punishes Doha.
Creative punishes Doha in a kill that doesn't matter at all.
For his beautiful...
And you extend it a bit.
Ultimate ability, but it's not going to be a punish that nets Gen.G anything.
It's not going to be a punish that nets him anything. Well, yeah, that's true. It's completely insignificant. You could just... If you're going to mention the kill, to say, well, Creative finds an exit kill, but it's not going to matter. Damn. You've just done 15 seconds of casting in 2.
More than a little bit of a pat on the back.
More than a little bit of pat on the back. So that doesn't belong there. It doesn't belong in his cast, that.
They're flexible.
Yeah, this is disastrous for Gen.G. Though they do have ultimate economy rather coming to this next fight. The question is, can they even touch the point? You know, they do have time.
Yep. Great question. Very important one.
To work with, so they will likely get a last fight, but we all used the Graviton in that last fight.
Very good point. Something that was unfortunately missed.
They don't really have, they don't really have that confirmed kill ability anymore. Here comes that rally on the fight.
Good throw. The rally on the fight. I mean, yeah, whose rally? Maybe just, yeah, Wakid's rally. Wakid's rallying. Gen.G have to commit to this fight. Great way to throw. And the throw timing was fine for me. Something's about to happen here, so.
Now they have to fight on the objective as well.
That's a good anti.
Yeah, you cut over him, but I kind of get it. He maybe hung on for a little long.
Angle of engagement. The anti does force the sound barrier from Unique rather early. So Gen.G, they have the chance to re-engage with their own sound barrier, but Oberon's down before he can get it. There goes your main tank. There goes your way of avoiding.
Before you can get the sound barrier, yeah.
Damage and applying damage of your own. And with the grabs coming out, Element Mystic can just clean up Gen.G. EMP in desperation. Catches
four. That actually wasn't desperation EMP, so that time you're right.
But doesn't accomplish much of anything. Element Mystic
doesn't accomplish much of anything. Yeah, it's true. I mean, this is just an easy way to say it. Okay, so I generally think that fight was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. We're gonna go piece by piece through it, and I think that'll take us through to the end of this VOD review. So, generally speaking, I didn't really have too many issues with that.
From Unique,
okay, we're gonna go back a little bit here.
And now they have to fight on the objective as well.
That's a good anti.
I like that. Yeah, that it's a good anti can come in under if you just leave it, and your other commentator is able to carry on. That's fine.
Of engagement. The anti does force the sound barrier from Unique rather early. So
from Unique rather early. Good.
Gen.G, they have the chance to re-engage with their own sound barrier, but
re-engage with their own sound barrier. Yep.
Oberon's down before he can get it.
Oberon's down before he can. So you gotta be careful because sometimes the Oberon's down before he can get the ult. Just say before he can receive the sound barrier. Not a big deal.
There goes your main tank. There goes your way of avoiding damage and applying damage of your.
There goes your way of avoiding damage and applying damage of your own. So you've stretched this out a lot. Just say your main tank's down. Big source of damage and protection.
And with the grabs coming out, Element Mystic can just clean up Gen.G.
Element Mystic can just clean up Gen.G. Yeah, I mean it's fun.
EMP in desperation.
Yep,
catches four, but
four.
Doesn't accomplish much.
So you are. I feel like I don't know if you're buying yourself some time here, but there are some like you're choosing a couple of less significant things and you're spending a lot of time on them. So EMP comes out in desperation, catches on the 4, but it won't do much of anything. Yeah, that's true. It's okay. It's a bit wishy-washy. It's it's okay.
Much of anything. Element Mystic. 100-0 on the last round to win Iliad.
All right, just try and say on ruins instead of the last round. On ruins.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons. That last fight actually is exactly the reason why we say there's no dry fights in Overwatch, because Element Mystic goes from zeros to full commit on ultimates in one fight, right? Yeah. So it's really impressive showing from them.
I just love how they have replays. How Elo Hell and Contenders have replays. It makes me so happy. It's so good.
Mystic, they take map number 1, but I think you can see that Gen.G is a very good team and they deserve their spot towards the top end of our bracket.
Okay, so I think that's where we'll leave that one. I'm just trying to keep them a little bit short for the use of for ease of reference or access on YouTube. Yes, Nari, I do color and play-by-play. I'll review anything. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit here. So timing for tying in your color caster statements is something you wanted me to look at. First of all, you try not to cut in. You just have to let them go. You guys need to find your flow. You just have to take your time with it, all right? And when you get the ball when you get the ball. Try and avoid cutting in over the top. If you're going to say something, try and bring it under and go from there. You didn't ask any questions in this map. So you might have expected me to review the whole VOD. That would just take hours. You need to ask more questions in the round. You didn't ask any. The only one you said was, oh, this is pretty crazy, right? Or something with right as an addendum on it. So let's have more questions. You can create time for those questions in between fights by being more concise. being concise, I think, is something you need to work on. It's not just the words you use, it's how you phrase words. It's how you connect ideas to one another. I think you can cut your time in half. So what do I mean when I say under during a cast? I just mean speak at a volume that doesn't overwhelm the other caster. Now, this is hard to do online because you can't see each other, but sometimes Matt, I mean, a great example is what Wolf does when Seth is doing play-by-play commentary. So when Achilleos is casting, Wolf often comes in under, even if he's yelling, but he comes in a way that it's just supposed to be there. It's not supposed to take over. He's not trying to take the reins, but it's pointing out something that's important in a fight. That's something that they do quite often. Me and Matt, not so much, because we prefer the conversational style. So questions, just ask them, bro. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if there's information that you want to give, just set your color caster up for the slam dunk. Now, your color caster then needs to understand that means that, you know, he's been giving some airtime by you, and he needs to obviously understand when he needs to get out. But generally, his throws were pretty good. You made a great point here. One of the things you wanted me to look at was focusing on the specifics of a fight versus general big picture stuff. You definitely, what you're doing is you are focusing on the general picture, but you are taking as long as if you were fleshing out very specific ideas. So if you're going to be general, you know, keep it short, keep it concise, especially if it's things that I can see on the kill feed. You, in my opinion, need to do a lot more specific things, but rattle them off really quick. You need to find a way to say that Wikid got shield bashed, you know, or, you know, very quickly that, you know, there was a shatter set up. That's just really important. There's a, I'll be honest with you, some of those fights, I was not over the moon about. So I know this was a while back, so that's fine. But yeah, you definitely need to work on using your co-commentator. The laughing and the jokes are fine. You need to know when you need to just get a feel for when it's appropriate to sort of focus a bit more on the game. And yeah, questions. I think that's about it. So thanks for watching this VOD review, and hopefully I'll have a little bit more out in the future. Thanks also to Paulsible for, you know, obviously putting himself out there to be reviewed on Twitch publicly. So thank you very much for that.